Hello, this is Reality Rumble, the versus show with a twist. Now, as you can probably tell, I have not uploaded to this channel for 2 months. Most of the reason of that is because I've, moved and done a bunch of stuff. So, I've kind of haven't really had time to focus time and attention to this channel. I've also been trying to work out how to, see if I can animate some stuff for it. Hopefully, in a maximum of, 2 to 3 months, there should be animated content on this channel. That's kind of the intention. But in the meantime, I will bung out a bunch of other stuff. I'm hopefully going to do one video every other week. That may not be a full fight, but it will be something. So I hope you look forward to that. But the matchup for this video is something that I have been planning out for extensively for quite a while, because it is a pretty dadgum hefty fight, and I imagine this video is probably going to end up being an hour long. Hopefully not, though. You know how I've recently got into Persona 5. Well, the Persona franchise as a whole, actually. And you know how everybody says that the Persona franchise is basically edgy Pokemon? Well, for this fight, I thought, well, let's go on that exactly and pit the Phantom Thieves of Hearts against Ash Ketchum's team from Pokemon. Okay, so basically how this is going to work is I've taken 6 Pokemon from Ash's team and 6 of the members of the Phantom Thieves of Hearts, and I'm going to pit each one of them against each other as a battle match thing. I'm going to compile them all together in this one long video, then I may upload separate videos with each individual character later, because then if there's 2 characters that you really care about, then you don't have to plow through a massive long video to get to the actual bit that you want to watch. So there's not necessarily going to be an overall winner of this fight. It's more just the winners of each of their kind of individual fights. I was somewhat limited in the point that my previous 2 matches on this channel, I am doing this in Totally Accurate Battle Simulator. So when I get to the actual battle bits, they're not going to be totally accurate, because, for instance, fire is a permanent projectile thing, rather than being an intermittent attack burst. You'll see what I mean when I get to it. And also in the case of the Pokemon, I was kind of limited to human ones, solely because you have to build upon a human model. So there was only so much creativity I could do there, but fortunately, honestly, I'd say Ash's 6 most... Well, I did include Pikachu, but other than that, his other most powerful Pokemon are all fairly humanoid anyway, because I theoretically tried to pick his strongest from throughout the series. However, I have not... I have a disclaimer in the case of the Pokemon. I'm not using any legendaries, and they can't use their, like, gimmicky thing. Like, in the case, like, if they could Mega Evolve, or, no, wait, what am I saying, actually? No, wait, I am gonna let them use the... Well, actually, in the case of, like, the gimmicky thing, you'll kind of, when I get to the individual, like, characters, I'll sort of go more into, like, how I'm gonna make that work, how I'm not... You'll see what I mean later on. But yeah, let's get on with the main actual segment of this video, instead of just the now, like, 6-minute long waffly intro. Okay, so starting off with Team 1, we have the Phantom Thieves of Hearts. So they are a group that originate from the video game Persona 5, which is kind of the 5th game in the Persona series, but also not really, because they've done like a bazillion and one spin-off games. But it's like kind of the 5th, like, mainline one, I guess, but as I said, they're numbering and, like, spin-off thing, and then you've got Shin Megami Tensei, and that whole, like, Persona franchise ordering game thing is just very weird and illogical. But anyway, they come from Persona 5. So the Phantom I can't talk. The Phantom Thieves are formed when, a student named Ren Amamiya is framed for a crime he did not commit, so he then gets, like, exiled, I guess, to some, like, part of Tokyo in Japan, where he then, like, lives with this cafe owner, and he basically has to live, like, a normal life or else he'll go to prison. So he then enrolls in Shujin Academy, where he then meets a disgruntled, like, ex-member of the track team called Ryuji, and the sort of stereotypical popular girl named Anne. And I found out that the reason she doesn't have a really Japanese name is because she's supposed to be from Finland, but Anne is really not a very Finnish-sounding name, in my opinion, but okay then. But then the three of them realize that Kamoshida, the leader of the school's volleyball team, is doing bad things to people that I cannot say what they are on this app, or this video is going to get taken down, but he's not a nice man. So then the three of them get a weird app on their phone, which then lets them teleport to the metaverse, which is an alternate reality made of people's cognitive thoughts, because that makes complete sense. So they then meet a talking cat called Morgana, who acts as, like, their guide throughout the game, and is, like, the one that kind of gives you all the tutorial hints, but they're also sort of a playable character, who explains to the three of them that basically whatever they do in this alternate reality will affect the people in, like, the real world. So they then realize that by basically breaking into a palace and stealing a giant crown, they'll turn this Kamoshida into, like, a nice, respectable citizen, and then he'll confess to all of his crimes. So they then decide to form a team that basically tries to turn complete jerky idiots into nice people by beating them up in an alternate dimension. And all the main characters in, well, all the Persona games can wield, yep, you guessed it, personas.
Where'd your energy from earlier go? A peasant like you isn't worth beating. I'll have you killed right now. What? Don't you dare tell me you don't know who I am. That look in your eyes irritates me. Hold him there. After the peasant, it's his turn to die.
No, I don't want to die!
This is truly an unjust game. Your chances of winning are almost none. But if my voice is reaching you, there may yet be a possibility open to you.
What's the matter? Are you simply going to watch? Are you forsaking him to save yourself? Death awaits him if you do nothing. Was your previous decision a mistake? Very well. I have heeded your resolve. Vow to me. I am thou. Thou art I. Thou who art willing to perform all sacrilegious acts for thine own justice. Call upon my name and release thy rage. Show the strength of thy will to ascertain all on thine own, though thou be chained to hell itself.
Execute him! What was that? You desire to be killed that much? Fine.
I am the pillager of Twilight, Arsene!
Which are physical manifestations of their personality, I think. I'm honestly a bit confused. They kind of act like Pokemon, but rather than physically hitting things, they're kind of like see-through ghosts. With exceptions that I'll get to in a moment. So, for the kind of the main characters, Ren, or Joker, as he's given, because they all have, like, code names. He's, the guy from Smash Bros. His persona is Arsene, which I also realized is, from getting later on through the game, is based on a character from a real-world book who's like a detective or thief or something in, like, the Victorian era, I think. I don't know, but anyway. Joker wields a pistol and a dagger. He's also super mobile. He has, like, a grappling hook, etc. His persona, Arsene, is basically like a giant humanoid bird with, like, a top hat and a monocle. It's a very strange design, and I really do not get it. But when he summons his persona, he then gets the ability to shoot these dark energy projectiles and to fly, because the because his persona can kind of fuse with him. Like, because, you know, if you do the up B in Smash Bros, the, like, wings transfer to Joker himself. We can kind of do that in the main game, where, like, Arsene can increase the power of Joker's, like, gun, and, as I said, let him fly, and so on and so forth. So then, Ryuji, or Skull, his persona Captain Kidd is like a cowboy pirate. So, and then Ryuji kind of weirdly sort of seems to take, I guess, like the personality of like a pirate, minus the yars and rs. But his persona lets him ram people with a pirate ship, and shoot lightning. Ryuji himself also wields a baseball bat and a shotgun, and it took me an embarrassingly long time when playing the game to realize that he hits people with a baseball bat rather than just hitting them with, like, the butt end of the shotgun, which is what I thought he did to begin with, because I was like, why are you just hitting people with a gun? But no, they are like two separate weapons, and I'm just a blind idiot. And then Anne, or Panther, can shoot fire and wields a whip. She's also, again, has pretty good agility and is, I think, like the fastest character on foot. Okay, in the case of Morgana, his powers are incredibly weird. He's a cat-sized humanoid cat with a katana sword who can shoot wind, and his mosquito is basically Buzzswole, like the Pokemon. It looks virtually identical, just blank. And he can also turn into a bus, because, in a minute I will play, and in editing I will play the clip that explains why he can do that. Not that that's going to help you understand it.
Looks pretty huge. Are we gonna be able to get around just by walking?
It seems the time has finally come. Morgana! Transform! Come now, Panther. Ladies first.
A car? No way!
This comes from the way cognition materializes in the metaverse, plus a bit of extra training. It's not dissimilar to how you guys transform.
You turning into a car is totally different than our clothes changing.
For some reason, cats turning into buses is an extremely widespread cognition among the general public.
So then, as if you can count, you gather I've only said 4 people, and I need 6. But as you then progress further through the game, more and more characters then join the Phantom Thieves. So for this video I'm just using the first 6, mostly because I haven't completed the game yet, and I didn't want to look up loads of stuff about the end of the game and spoil it for myself. So, yeah, I know a lot of you are probably annoyed. I may do a part 2 once I finished the game. So yeah, but basically the next character recruited to the Phantom Thieves is Yusuke, who is a art student and is, in my opinion, the least likable member of the team. He's just really obsessed with art and speaks in long, waffly, posh words. And it just sounds like I'm personally, like, hating on the guy, and I'm not. Well, I mean, like, I am, but I'm kind of trying to base the actual, like, fight off their, like, canon ability and how well they'd, like, properly do, rather than just, like, you know, my bias. But basically, his ability, he also has a sword, not a katana sword. I'm not sure actually what type of sword it is. I think it's another type of Japanese sword though. His codename is Fox. He also can shoot ice. And although weirdly he has no real art-based powers, considering his whole shtick is he's an artist. I always kind of also found that really weird that he can't like shoot paint or something. But he is one of the most tactically minded members of the team, which does make him pretty good in battle because he's very apt at detecting like where opponents' weaknesses are, because he can sort of read the battlefield, because like war is an art or something. And finally, Makoto, who is actually one of the first characters introduced in the game, because she's the school president to begin with. And initially you think she's going to be an antagonist, like, you know, become like a villain. And then you realize that she's actually nothing like her, how people perceive her to be. And she's actually like a really nice person. And she wants to stop having this perception of being like this prissy, privileged girl. So she then just goes completely the other end and then just becomes like a punk rock biker. Because, and here's going into the thing I was saying about personas being see-through and can't physically do anything, but then they kind of can. Because her persona is a motorbike, which she can ride and run people over with. And I really don't get why she can do that. Like, how her persona is a vehicle when all the rest of them are really weird, abstract monster things. And then she literally has just a motorbike. Okay then. Yeah, Makoto wields brass knuckles, and her attacks do nuke damage, which sounds way more over the top than it actually is. Because when I first unlocked her, and I was like, nuke? What? I just expected her to drop like a giant bomb. That's not really how it works. She instead just kind of uses pretty standard-sized bombs. And also like energy projectiles. It's basically a way more threatening way of just saying energy. But still, yep, they are... Oh yeah, and she is also the most, I was going to say intelligent member. Kind of not, because one of the other ones who's not on this list is like a computer genius. But Makoto's kind of the more intelligent one on general day-to-day stuff, and also probably the best of the entire team on battle tactics, like normally, because throughout the game, if like Morgana is saying, oh, you know, this enemy is weak to this, or whatever, like half the characters will be standing there looking completely confused, and then she'll be like the only one that understands anything that he's saying. So yeah, that is the Phantom Thieves of Hearts. So let's move on to who they'll be facing. Okay, so obviously I doubt I really need to go into great backstory and explanation as to who Ash is, because I'm fairly sure that pretty much everybody knows who he is. Even if you haven't played Pokemon, he's basically the protagonist of the anime. That's really all the lore I'm gonna bother giving him. Because he's not actually going to be fighting, his Pokemon are, so we're gonna go into those, not him. So first off we have Infernape, which is a Pokemon from the Diamond and Pearl games, and is one of the first Pokemon that Ash caught in the Diamond and Pearl anime, because he got it as a Chimchar, which did originally belong to Paul, the rival character of that show. But then Ash took it in and because he saw the potential of it, and then it evolved eventually into its final evolution, Infernape. So basically, Ashes, and this is why I was saying about Pokemon with gimmicks and like how I was going to handle it with this, because Infernape technically does not have one, due to the game being from not having Mega Evolution or anything. However, Ash's Infernape can effectively use Battle Bond, the same ability later coined for his Greninja, where basically Ash's Infernape can turn like orange and super powerful. Infernape is a fighting and fire type, which means his moveset and a fighting style, because in the case of the Pokemon, I'm more basing their fighting abilities on how they fought in the anime rather than how they play in like the turn-based games, because obviously this is not a turn-based, animation fight, so probably one of Infernape's best moves, even though its damage is not actually that good, is Mach Punch, which in the show works kind of completely differently to how it works in the game, because in the games it doesn't really do anything. However, in the show it basically makes the user move at like super speed, because all it really does in the game increases, it lets the user attack first next turn. However, in the anime, it basically super boosts the user's speed temporarily, so they just go flying at, Mach speed. And then Punch, which then, for close range fighters like Infernape, then let him hit several follow-up moves, because he also has access to Flare Blitz and Close Combat, which are again close-up punching moves that do a lot of damage. He also can shoot fire with moves such as Flamethrower and Flame Wheel, kind of, because that one works really weirdly. He also has Flare Blitz, Fire Blast, Focus Blast. You kind of name it, he has pretty much every offensive and long-ranged fire and fighting move that exists. Paired with his fancy super ability from the anime makes him incredibly powerful because of his speed and sheer power. Okay, next we have Incineroar, also the guy from Smash Bros. Incineroar is like a wrestler Pokemon, and unlike Smash Bros. Makes you think in the video games, he can't actually use wrestler moves. However, he can in the anime, so I'm kind of going to be basing it more off the Smash Bros. Version. He is, in the anime, I think, given to Ash by Professor Kukui, the professor of the Sun and Moon regions. So he's basically a giant wrestler cat, which means that he has access and is also fire dark type, which means he has access to, dark and fire moves. His main ones being Darkest Lariat, which is his signature move, where he basically spins around like Crash Bandicoot to deal quite a lot of damage. He also has access to the most darkly named Pokemon move ever, Throat Chop. Okay, then again, Guillotine is also a move, so I don't know which of those two is worse. Similar to Infernape, he also has access to a bunch of punching moves and Flamethrower, Flare Blitz, Flame Wheel, etc., etc. He can also use... He also apparently used Blaze Kick. I did not realize that was a move he could learn. That's actually really OP. That's cool. He also has Cross Chop, which is like his up B in Smash Bros. However, all it really does in the games and the TV show is just make a giant X of like orange energy rather than exploding. I kind of wish it exploded. The Smash animation looks way cooler. He can also, as I said, use wrestling moves, so he's a very... However, unlike Incineroar, he is incredibly slow and tanky. His speed in Smash Bros. Is fairly representative to his speed and everything else. He is a very slow, tanky wrestler that just can punch through solid concrete and you name it. Next we have Sceptile, which I've realised I've been pronouncing wrong for years because I've never pronounced the C in its name and I've just always called it Sceptile, but there is a C in its name, apparently, meaning it is Sceptile. How I did not notice that before, I do not know, but anywho, it's a kind of a humanoid gecko dragon thing. Now, Sceptile was used by Ash in the anime, and honestly, I feel it's one of its most, like, under-respected Pokemon that he used, because I think it, like, went toe-to-toe with a Darkrai, and at least another legendary Pokemon. Like, this thing is strong, much stronger than it gets credit for. It's also incredibly fast, and ninja-like, similar to the Infernape. So yeah, its main signature move is Leaf Blade, where it basically generates an energy sword off its arm, and due to that, most of its attacking ability revolves around sword-based slashing moves. It can also use Leaf Storm, which when I get to its fight, I tried to replicate by using Shuriken Storm. So if you basically see it shooting a bunch of shurikens, that's like supposed to be Leaf Storm, but it just looks nothing like it, but it was the closest thing I could find. So yeah, Sceptile is a pretty good, just all-around Pokemon. As I said, it's kind of speed and physical offense are definitely its two best kind of stats, but it's just, as I said, a generally good tactical Pokemon to use. So next we have Lucario, who I'm kind of confused, really, whether this Pokemon is a legendary Pokemon or isn't. Because I kind of class it as being one, but it's not officially classed as one. Mostly because it can talk, and it is stupidly strong. I know I did say in the intro that I wasn't going to use legendary Pokemon. But as I said, it's not officially classed as one. So... yeah, that one's kind of the wishy-washy one of the list, but here we are, I wanted to include it, so sue me for it. Now, Lucario is kind of the nemesis, sort of Mewtwo, because they fought each other in at least one Pokemon movie, right? Like, or some episodes of the show, I can't remember. It's definitely fought Mewtwo at some point, because that was like one of its whole things of like the marketing in Smash 4 and Ultimate was like them two, the Mewtwo and Lucario could finally actually fight each other in Smash Bros. So Lucario can use Aura, which is basically like sort of your chi, your kind of internal fighting energy, which it can draw to use a variety of moves, such as Aura Sphere, where it shoots a giant energy ball, or Bone Rush, where it makes an giant bone staff out of energy and just whacks the opponent with it. It does use Force Palm and Close Combat, two very good close-range punching moves. It's also, again, incredibly fast, but Lucario can sense its opponent's movements, meaning it kind of effectively can see the future, because it can detect what its opponent is going to do, and then adapt to doing it. Because normally Lucario's in, like, the Pokemon lore, even if they have a trainer, can just battle independently without one. Because, as I said, they're kind of one of the most intelligent, tactically minded Pokemon in existence, which makes them incredibly hard to beat. And they also, in the anime and then Scarlet Violet, gained a new attack called Met Steel Beam, I think. I'm like trying to find it on this website list and I can't find it anywhere. But it's definitely a move that exists, because if you got the Ash Lucario in Sword and Shield, that was its like signature move. Because Ash's Pikachu can make it use like really fancy moves that it wouldn't normally be able to use. So yeah, in looking up this move, it basically, I think, just hits really... Oh yeah, that's what it does. It deals stupidly strong damage, but halves the user's HP. So, yeah, you do not want to be hit by that, because it will hurt a lot. Yeah, it does look like Sword and... Is it in Scarlet Violet? Okay. Looks like the move is in Scarlet Violet as well, but I have no idea how you unlock it in that game, because I was thinking it was just exclusive to the Ash Lucario, but evidently it's not, but it's still a very strong move. Okay, now finally the two aces in the hole, Ash's two main Pokemon, Pikachu and Greninja. Now, Ash's Pikachu, you know, he's been his partner Pokemon ever since the start. Yes, Pikachu is very powerful. It's very vague why it's so much stronger than regular Pokemon, because it basically has beyond legendary level strength at times, because Ash's Pikachu can use the move A Million Volt Thunderbolt, where it basically shoots a giant rainbow-coloured lightning bolt that can basically level a whole city if he's not careful. I think like the animation of it in Sun and Moon, it basically does just leave this absolutely ginormous like crater in the ground. So yeah, that move alone is godly powerful. Plus, Pikachu can also shoot electricity and are very fast. Plus, can turn their tails to metal to hit with a very forceful but inaccurate move called Iron Tail. But the main strength that Ash's Pikachu has is his bond with the trainer, giving him additional strength to what he would normally have. Speaking though of bonds, we can't talk about this list without touching on Ash Greninja, the strongest Pokemon Ash has ever possessed, even beyond his Pikachu. Because Ash Greninja is basically a fusion of Greninja and Ash, because Ash can literally transfer his consciousness into the Pokemon and become the Pokemon, allowing it to Mega Evolve and turn into this really cool looking red and blue frog ninja thing with a gigantic water shuriken. Again, similar to Pikachu, this Pokemon gains access to kind of a move it has normally, but also not really, because Greninja's signature move is Water Shuriken. But upon the two fusing, Ash Greninja gets access to, well, it's still technically called Water Shuriken, I think, but I'm basically going to call it Bond Shuriken, where they can basically generate a gigantic water shuriken, like the size of a house, and just throw it very, very, very fast. Because Greninja can also go so fast that he can effectively teleport. He just poofs into like a smoke ball. Can also make duplicates of himself, summon sword blades and like energy blades that he can slash people with. Has access to various water projectiles other than shurikens. He can like shoot jets of water, use his tongue as a whip, jump really high, dodge projectiles, deflect weaponry. You basically name it, Greninja can do it. Especially Ash's one. It's very, very powerful. So, yep, that will finally wrap up our analysis section. So let's get on with the battles. Okay, so I've tried to match each Pokemon with a Phantom Thief. So basically I've tried to match them so I'm putting characters with similar power sets and stat lines against each other to make it as fair as possible. So firstly is Anne versus Infernape, because they can both use fire and are both the most agile member of each other's teams, with the exception of the main characters, but obviously they have to kind of fight each other, so yep, let's get on with the battle. If I click the right button.
You're striking me down with games and lies. I trusted what I found. Your only true friend is your desire for playing around. You're out of your mind, you've lost control. I'm gonna take back what's mine. You never had my soul. This time you have really stepped across the line.
And now, as honestly reasonably even matched as these two are, I personally believe Infernape would probably take this A, because it's sort of the special, like, super form that it kind of gets in the anime, but also because even though Anna's probably the most agile member of the team, she is probably nowhere near as fast as Infernape with Mach Punch. Plus, she kind of only has a whip and fire. And although she takes less damage from fire attacks in Persona, Infernape also takes less damage from fire attacks. So kind of, in that respect, they're fairly even, but I kind of think Infernape would take this. Okay, so next up we have Ryuji versus Incineroar, because they're both the kind of dumb muscle of each side's team. Because obviously Ryuji kind of the most close range heavy hitter of the Phantom Thieves, and Incineroar is, he's literally like a wrestler, so yeah. Okay, I'm not sure why Incineroar just died so quickly there. That was a little weird, but honestly, this one was probably the fight out of all of them that had me deliberating the most for the longest about who I thought would win. But honestly, in the end, as big an idiot as he is, I would actually say Ryuji, because he possesses far more range and speed than Incineroar, because he has a gun for a start, and he can shoot lightning. And although I can't replicate it in this game properly, he can kind of summon a giant pirate ship. Whereas Incineroar is just a cat. A swallow cat, but he's still just a cat. And even though he could spin and wrestle and punch, I think overarchingly Ryuji has more attack versatility, plus being on the track team, he's also very good at running away. So even if Incineroar got close, he could probably just leg it in the opposite direction and get away to then be able to use ranged attacks, though he'd probably take quite a lot of damage before then, because to begin with he'd be cocky thinking he could easily take Incineroar out. So frankly, I'd say it probably comes down really to like their cockiness or whatever at the time. This one could probably go either way, but I'm gonna say Ryuji. So next we have Yusuke and Lucario. They're both very into culture, because Lucario is supposed to be like an Egyptian Anubis, and Yusuke is obviously like obsessed with Japanese art, and his like persona, like form outfit thing is supposed to be based on like the nine-tailed fox from Japanese mythology that I don't know enough about to talk about properly. But anyway, there we go, that's working properly now. Okay, so again, this one would probably be reasonably close, with them both having good tactics knowledge and being pretty innovative in battle, because Yusuke, I'd say, like, if he was losing it, try and work out how to adapt to his opponent to beat them. But Lucario can also kind of read minds, sort of. So, in that respect, they're again very evenly matched, but Lucario just possesses more hit strength and versatility. So I think in that respect, although Yusuke can shoot ice and freeze people, A, the effect only works temporarily, and B, Lucario most of the time would be able to either dodge it, deflect it, or if he was frozen, escape. So honestly, I'm probably just gonna have to give this one to Lucario because he is very powerful. What can I say? So now we have Makoto and Sceptile, who are both, kind of in my opinion, the most underrated members of probably each team on it. So that's kind of half the reason I put them there, also because they're both very fast, close range brawlers with kind of a bit of a rebellious streak to them, so
Lives in a palace full of tales and lies. We gotta stake it from midnight. It was the malice that you chose to hide. It's just to break it, to break out, breaking it. So we can break out, breaking it. So we can break out, breaking it. So we can break out, breaking out. Why should I believe in anyone when I get just trick and thief? Life's likely to have one up this sleeve. The game is on, we're playing the odds. The sound is done, pretending to act like us. Who's still just open? Who cares if and is we're living on the run? Lives in the palace full of mirrors deceit. We've had to break it to get out. Think of the madness, snapping at your feet.
it's another one that I think really could go probably either way. With Sceptile being very fast and ninja-like. But Makoto also has a very tactical brain. So I think, although I couldn't include it in the fight itself, I think Makoto's bike would play a pretty major factor in the fight. Because although Sceptile is very, very fast, with Makoto having access to an energy bike that can also shoot energy, that kind of makes her much faster. So she could probably literally drive rings around Sceptile till he basically just gave up. So now we've got the battle of the short mascot, Pikachu and Morgana.
We had to break it to break out.
Even though Morgana is fast, can use wind and can turn into a bus.
Words that I might be honest and gentle in some other life, 'cause this one has made a heart.
let's just, I don't know if this is actually finished properly because it looks weird, but oh well, let's just roll with it.
Thieves in the palace to steal the golden crown. It's just a break to break out. They fight the rallies, the weak and broken down. They're being endless, let it out. Breaking in so we can break up, breaking in so we can break up, breaking in so we can break up, breaking out.
Now, although this one is probably a little controversial, again, honestly, I probably think Ash Greninja would take this. Because, I mean, Joker does have wild card abilities which give him access to a bunch of other personas and stuff, but I wanted to limit this to only one persona per character, so therefore I just gave him access to a signature one of Arsene. If Joker was allowed to use his full extent of power, yes, he probably would win. Plus, although then again, technically none of the Persona characters' abilities actually work in the real world, so really none of them would be able to do anything, assuming they fought in the human world. But he's definitely very versatile, and I think would put up a very good fight. But probably a lot closer fight than I can make in this. But still, I definitely think it would be very close, but I do think Ash Greninja would probably take it. Especially because the Phantom Thieves only operate over about like a year, whereas Ash has paddled for like 20 years now. So yeah, but that is this very long video. I hope you enjoyed. There should be another couple of fights coming in the next 2 weeks. Hopefully one should be uploaded next week, one will be uploaded the week after that. Then it's kind of going to be a bit of intermittent content again, but still, I hope you enjoy. Please like and subscribe, and goodbye.